Thomas spends his nights scaling 10-story buildings and jumping across rooftops under the mantle of a vigilante known as the Lambda. This high-adrenaline vigilantism serves a specific purpose. The violence provides a distraction from a life spent entirely alone. For Thomas, the cape isn't just a uniform. It's a barrier that keeps the world at a distance. Then there is Korsk, a man who sees past the vigilante persona. Korsk is wealthy and devoted, and he has spent months trying to navigate the emotional maze Thomas has built around himself. But standard dating doesn't work when one partner treats every emotional overture like a threat to be neutralized. When Korsk reaches out to him, Thomas's first instinct is always to retreat back into the shadows of the city. To bridge the gap, Korsk organizes dates centered on shared thrills, like scuba diving, high-altitude hang gliding, and extreme off-roading. He provides all the equipment, from the tanks to the ATVs. Rather than bringing them closer, these gifts create a specific internal friction. As the diagram shows, the luxury triggers a sense of financial guilt in Thomas. He begins to view the relationship as transactional, which he uses as a reason to withdraw emotionally. Even a simple dinner at an expensive restaurant becomes a point of contention. Thomas watches Korsk pay the bill and sees a power imbalance that justifies his own distance. Korsk realizes that as long as they are operating within their normal lives, Thomas will always have an excuse to stay guarded. To finally fix the relationship, he decides to remove every physical and financial safety net Thomas relies on. Korsk's plan is drastic. Following a date, he has a contact drug them both, sending their world into a sudden, disorienting blur. While unconscious, they are stripped of their dinner jackets and red roses. Their designer clothes are replaced with grimy, ill-fitting rags that reek of the street. They recap in a dirt alleyway in Samothea, a country thousands of miles from home. They have no money, no identification, and are surrounded by a population that is openly hostile toward Americans. Korsk presents the harsh terms of this new reality. They are currently bums on the opposite side of the world. If they can find their way back home as a team, it will prove their connection exists independently of Korsk's bank account. By stranding them in these slums, Korsk has effectively deleted the wealth-based excuses Thomas used to stay emotionally isolated. For the first time, Thomas must rely on Korsk for survival, not just for a lifestyle. Even without his gear, Thomas cannot turn off his protective instincts. As they scavenge for food, his eyes are constantly scanning the environment for threats. This map shows guards clearing a neglected alleyway instead of the main thoroughfare. A blockade forces the motorcade into this narrow vulnerability zone. From a vacant rooftop, a clear line of sight creates a precise kill box aimed directly at the redirected route. Thomas doesn't hesitate. Despite the rags and the hunger, he immediately moves to intercept the threat, proving that his drive to protect isn't tied to his status or his equipment. The tactical situation is grim. Armed men are guarding the entrance to the building, and Thomas has no way to bypass them without being spotted. Korsk creates the necessary opening by acting as a manic distraction. He begins a bizarre, erratic performance in the alley, successfully pulling the guards' attention away from the door and toward his own chaotic behavior. With the guards occupied, Thomas slips into the building and scales the interior stairwell, reaching the roof in seconds. On the roof, he finds the gunman. Without his bulletproof Lambda armor, Thomas has to engage in a high-stakes struggle where a single mistake could be fatal. He overpowers the assassin, who falls from the roof, and takes down a secondary gunman below, saving the King of Samothea from betrayal. In the heat of the crisis, Thomas and Korsk functioned as a single unit. The fear of using each other was replaced by the necessity of trusting each other. After the assassination attempt is thwarted, the King of Samothea brings the two men to his palace, intent on rewarding the bums who saved his life. This palace represents the peak of material comfort, standing in stark contrast to the alleyways they just escaped. The king offers them a feast, a permanent home, and a harem of 20 men to cater to their every whim. For Thomas, this is a pivotal moment. He is being offered luxury and physical companionship that has nothing to do with Korsk or his money. He could have the comfort he supposedly craves without any of the emotional baggage. Instead, Thomas rejects the harem. He turns away from the luxury and looks directly at Korsk. By choosing the man who dragged him into the slums over a palace full of strangers, Thomas demonstrates that his feelings are rooted in Korsk himself, not the lifestyle Korsk provides. Thomas's only request to the king is a simple one. He wants to share a bath with the man he loves before they head back home. Thomas acknowledges that his focus on the money was a shield. He used the gold digger narrative to avoid the risks of a real relationship. But that argument dissolved the moment they were both equally broke and in danger. The stress of the Samathian experiment forced Thomas to realize that the danger of being vulnerable was far less terrifying than the prospect of losing the one person who followed him into the trash. For people who spend their lives building armor, connection requires dismantling their comfort zones. It took losing everything for Thomas to realize he finally had something worth keeping.